Welcome to Excel for Beginners Part 2. If you missed Part 1, you may want to go back and watch it first before you continue watching Part 2. I'll add a card in the upper right hand corner to that video and a link to Part 1 in the comments below. Now let's get started. You are now looking at the Formulas menu, which is the next menu over. And the Formulas menu actually is the power of Excel. Anytime you have a series of numbers or a series of data, or in some cases a series of text, you can make an effect on that text or that data by using formulas. And you can use this menu in various ways. For example, one of the easiest ways to use the formula menu is to use the auto sum. So for example, if we highlight this information and then we click the auto sum, the sum will show at the bottom of the content by using that menu. We can do this very same thing again. Let's use the undo command. And we use AutoSum, we can take an average as well. You'll also see the average come available in this area. So basically, each of these areas is going to take some time to learn the basics of how to use each of the formulas and make them work. So for example, we'll look at the financials formulas. You'll see various financial or finance number values. You'll see example future value, internal rate of return, or net present value if you're familiar with that one. And basically what happens is if you place your cursor inside of a specific cell and you decide you want a certain formula, for example, you want net present value in this case, what Excel will prompt you for is going to be the very cells that you're going to use for that formula. So it walks you through the formula. So for example, we could decide to use a specific cell. We can use, in this case, a number cell for the first value. We can use a number cell for the second value. And then we can click OK. And you'll notice then that we get a calculation here. Now, if you know what the present value means, then you know what this number means. And we can use the same method for any of the formulas that you have available to you. For the most frequently used formulas, you can go to this one, even though that's going to be in some of the other areas. But for example, if all we wanted to do was to do a sum or an average, we can do that by placing the cursor where we want to find the final number. We can then decide that we want an average. It's then going to ask us where we're going to get that information from, and we're going to do the same thing we did before. We'll highlight or select a specific area, and then we'll click OK. And then what will happen in Excel is it will give us the average. So basically, you're looking at formulas to determine which one is going to be the most logical to use, and to use it inside the cell where you want the result. If you want more kinds of formulas, you can take a look at the More Functions area. You have statistical formulas, we have engineering formulas, cube formulas. We also have one for specific information compatibility, and even the web. Now, if you want to make sure your formula is working correctly, you can use the Formula Auditing section. If you want to work through your calculations while you're still creating your worksheet, you can use the Calculations section, and you can define names for the results you're getting from your formulas by using Define Name. Okay, so that's the overview of the Formulas menu. We are now in the Data menu, which is the next menu over. And to demonstrate what happens in the database, we're going to go to a new sheet by clicking on the Sheet 3 here at the bottom. And the first panel is where we have options on how we get the data. So for example, we use the drop-down menu that says Get Data. We can pull data inside of our spreadsheet from a file. We can do it from a database or from analysis services. We can pull data from online services. At this point, Excel connects to Facebook. And we can pull data from other sources. Again, now you'll have to set these up ahead of time, but for example, we can pull data from the web. We can get data from a text or a CSV file by clicking this link. Now there is a little redundancy here by having this menu in the bar. It's also in the Get Data area. If we have another set of data that we have named in another spreadsheet or another worksheet, we can get that data from this area. And what we need to do is we would need to determine the address for that data and place it here. So for example, if we were to pull in data from a text file, what we would do is go to this menu and we would click Text or CSV. Excel will give us a glimpse of what you're about to transform into Excel, and you'll then click Load. You'll then see your data imported into Microsoft Excel. Next, we'll take a look at sorting and filtering capabilities of the data section, as well as some of the data tools. Welcome back to part 2 of the data menu overview. We're now going to look at other parts of the data menu. In particular, we'll look at the sort and filter commands and the data tools. Now, the sort command is another very widely used function of Excel, and basically it allows us to sort any column of data. So for example, we can take this set of numbers and we can click Sort. And what we can do is we can decide that we want to sort that column based on the basis of the cell values and that we want to sort from smallest to largest. And you're going to notice then that all of the values appear in numerical order. We can do this across multiple sets of data. So for example, we can go across 3 sets of data. And then we can click the Sort command. And then we can sort by a specific column. We can sort by column C. We then sort on the basis of largest to smallest. And then we'll click OK. And you'll see then that the data is going to be arranged by column C. We can also sort text columns. So for example, we can sort this data. Click on Sort. We can determine that we want this set of data to appear in A to Z order or alphabetical order. Click OK, and you'll see that the data will appear in alphabetical order. We can also set filters across our data. So for example, what we can do is click the Filter button. You'll see then that we have drop-down arrows on each column. We can then take a drop-down arrow and we can arrange the data largest to smallest. And we also have data tools inside this panel. So for example, one thing we can do is we can remove duplicates from our data. So where we have some duplicate names, we can take this section. We can click this button that says Remove Duplicates, and we'll specify the column that Excel will use to determine duplicate data. You'll notice then that we have the duplicate items removed. Now, once you understand these basic features, you can use some of the other tools in order to provide analysis, such as what-if analysis. We can provide a forecast based on a set of data, and we can arrange our data either by grouping or by consolidating. All right, so that's the overview of the data menu. In this video, we are working with the Review menu, and you'll notice that most of these features exist in other Microsoft applications. The proofing, accessibility, insights, language, and even commenting, which allows you to collaborate and work with other people and keep track of the changes that other people are making. Unique to Excel is going to be your ability to do what's called protecting the workbook. And when you're protecting either the workbook or the sheet, what you're doing is you're keeping others from being able to edit the document or change the data in it. So for example, what we can do is in this case, we'll click Protect. What we can also do is make it so that people we're working with can change some sections of the document. In this case, what we're going to do is we're going to use this area that says Allow Edit Ranges. Now, for example, if we place our cursor inside of this cell, what we're going to do is notice that there's a formula that depends on 2 cells, E10 and D10. So in this case, you'll see that there is an E10 cell, which is column E, row 10, this cell, and then there's a D10. So what we want to do is make it so that E10 can be edited. So what we're going to do is click Allow Edit Ranges, and we're going to determine the exact place where others can make changes. And we're going to call this something specific. And what we can do is we can make it so that the individual that's going to make the changes is going to need a password. And then we click OK. We're going to need to re-enter the password, and then we'll click OK. That means that although this entire sheet is going to be protected and not changeable, this one cell is going to be changeable. That's going to help us be able to make changes to the formula that we have that we're going to click Apply, and then we'll click OK. So basically, now we've made it so that if someone wants to make changes to this file, the only thing they're going to be able to make changes to will be this cell, which will then affect this formula. So again, you can protect your entire workbook or worksheet, and then you can allow individuals to make changes to crucial parts of calculations that you actually want them to make. You're now looking at the View menu, which is the next menu over. It's basically going to show you what your document is going to look like when you're printing, as well as give you some alternatives to viewing your data in real time. So for example, if we want to know what our data is going to look like when we print, all we need to do is go to our page layout. This will show us what it actually will look like when being printed. And we can make our spreadsheet usable in ways that makes it easy for us to work with our data. So for example, let's assume that you have information that's off the screen, but you want to match it up with a column that you already have on the left side. One of the things you can do is you can use the split command. And so we're going to do this. We're going to place our cursor at this point in the column, and then we're going to click on the split command. We're going to place our cursor here, and what we're going to be able to do is we're going to be able to go all the way to the right, and then we're not going to have to change this information. We're going to be able to see this data versus the column that we have all the way on the left side. Now to take the split off, what we do is we just click the split button again. We can do the very same thing with rows. So we can place our cursor inside of the row, and then we click the split command. And then we can work with our data in that way. We can also freeze panes. So for example, one thing we can do is we can take this top column and we can go to freeze panes. And if we freeze the top row, what we can do is we can then scroll all the way down to the bottom. And this allows us to see our header, the heading, versus the data at the bottom of the worksheet. Of course, in addition to working with the rows, you can also work with columns. Now, macros will allow us to record repeated activity. So we record a macro, and what we're doing is we're recording something that we do over and over and over again. So we can use that same process automatically if we have to start another spreadsheet. And what we're going to do is the very same thing. Now, this is a bit complex process, but it is one that makes sense as you begin to use Excel more. And I do have tutorials on setting up and using macros, and I'll place a link to those videos in the comments below. All right, so that's an overview of the View menu. Thanks for watching this session of Go Ask Debbie. For more tips, tricks, and how-to videos like this one, be sure to subscribe to my channel and click the bell icon so that you're notified each time I upload a new tutorial.